Lieber Kirchentag, bitte begrüßen Sie Elisabeth von Thadden.
Guten Abend. Das ist ein besonderer Augenblick. Guten Abend, Halle 16. Halle 17 nebenan ist auch voll. Wir übertragen digital. Viele sind an Bord. Willkommen zu unserem Hauptpodium. Willkommen zu unserem Podium mit dem Titel Wir können mutig sein. Ich selber bin Elisabeth von Thadden, darf Sie begrüßen. Ich gehöre dem Präsidium des Kirchentags an, in dessen Namen ich Sie hier begrüße. Meine Aufgabe ist es auch, Ihnen zu sagen, dass Sie Fragen stellen können. Wir wollen sprechen, aber Ihre Fragen, eure Fragen interessieren uns. Ihr kennt vielleicht den Code, ich wiederhole ihn. Die Fragen möget ihr in dem Code SU84 stellen. So, jetzt hole ich tief Luft. Ich habe viel Erfahrung mit solchen Veranstaltungen, aber das ist dann doch etwas anderes. Vor allem nämlich möchte ich unseren besonderen Gast begrüßen. Mariann Edgar Budde, please come and join us. Well, and you know, Mariann, this is just half of the crowd. The rest of the crowd is next door, so. Mariann Edgar Budde leitet, wie Sie möglicherweise wissen, als Bischöfin die Episcopal Diocese of Washington, als erste Frau, wie Sie wahrscheinlich wissen. Aber Sie kennen sie ja alle aus einem ganz anderen Grund. Mariann Edgar Budde hat dem mächtigsten Mann der Welt einfach ins Gesicht gepredigt. Und was für eine Macht. Ich glaube, es ist keine Duckmäusersprache zu sagen, dass es gegenwärtig die furchterregende und unermessliche Macht von Menschen ist, die sich in den Vereinigten Staaten in den Händen weniger Männer konzentriert. Mariann Edgar Budde hat angesichts dieser Macht in den Tagen der Amtseinführung von Donald Trump einen anderen Ton angeschlagen. Erinnern Sie sich? Do you remember these inauguration days in January in Washington? Suddenly, the sphere of power was shattered by the sound of these words which you all know. In the name of God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now, some of them who fear for their lives. And she ended saying, we were all once strangers in this land. And in the name of dignity, which is a modern word for what we are, humans, she ended her speech and the world was different afterwards. Seither ist das Wort Mercy zurück in unserem Wortschatz. Und es spricht sich herum. It is our particular honor and pleasure to welcome you here tonight at the Deutsche Evangelische Kirchentag in Hannover. And you will speak and discuss with Heinrich Bedford-Strohm. Ich brauche ihn euch nicht vorzustellen. Heinrich Bedford-Strohm war, wie ihr wisst, Landesbischof der Evangelischen Landeskirche in Bayern. Er war unser Ratsvorsitzender der EKD. Heute ist er Vorsitzender des Weltkirchenrats. Das alles ist nur Ämtersprache. Er ist eine der prägenden theologischen Stimmen Europas. Und so dürfen wir vielleicht sagen, dass Europa und die Vereinigten Staaten nun miteinander sprechen werden. Und ich freue mich, auf die Stunden, die jetzt kommen, möchte euch ankündigen, dass hier keiner den Saal verlässt, ohne dass wir am Ende alle miteinander gesungen haben. Denn schließlich müssen wir ja auch irgendwie zum Ausdruck bringen, was das ist, der deutsche Protestantismus. Und schließlich und zu allerletzt wird es eine Signierstunde geben, aber das will ich am Ende alles noch in Erinnerung rufen. Vielen Dank. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. From the Gospel of John, Jesus said, "We speak of what we know, and we testify to what we have seen." And from the American sociologist of religion, Robert Bellah, these words: "As Christians, our greatest contribution to the world is, by God's grace, to be who we are." Thank you, dear friends in Christ, for your warm welcome, the wonderful invitation to be with you at this extraordinary gathering of Christians. And I have heard you sing, and you sing so beautifully, and I'm glad we will sing later together. I'm so honored to be with you. And I come in a spirit of friendship, bringing greetings from many in the United States who are your friends. And indeed, we are your relatives. Like many Americans, I am of European heritage. My mother, Anne Björkman, immigrated from Sweden when she was a young woman. And all my relatives on my mother's side live in Sweden and Northern Europe. My father was born to a young working-class Irish woman who gave him up for adoption, and he was raised by a family of English and Scottish descent, hence the name Edgar. My husband's family on his father's side comes from Germany. They immigrated to the US in the mid-19th century, hence the surname Budde. And his mother's family, the Mahoneys, fled Ireland during the Great Famine. We are family. And I am among the countless Americans grateful for the family ties, the shared values and alliance between Europe and the United States. Those ties have been tested in the past, and we are well aware that they are being tested now on the level of public policy because of the dramatic realignment of political power in the United States and a corresponding shift on that level in values and alliances. But I am here to assure you that not all Americans are in support of that shift. Many of us are heartbroken by what is being said and done around the world in our name. And in the United States, we are also dealing with the trauma of what is happening within our own country. Thousands of civil servants have lost their jobs. Entire agencies of our government are being dismantled. An aggressive deportation strategy for migrants is underway, and nearly all options for people to legally immigrate have been closed. We are witnessing a disregard for the rule of law from those elected and appointed to uphold the law. And just this weekend, the President has proposed a federal budget that would drastically reduce government investment in what we need most: education, housing, health care, and medical research. And sadly, many of these changes, at least in theory, were supported by the majority of Americans who voted in last year's elections. So this is a sobering time. The majority not only voted for President Trump, but also gave his party control over every branch of the federal government. And so I am here also to ask for your prayers. Pray for us, Christians in the United States, and of all people of faith and goodwill, as we discern how we are to live with moral courage in a time sorely in need of grace. And I can assure you of our prayers for you. One of the greatest challenges in the United States now is what I would describe to you as a culture of contempt that has normalized hateful speech and encourages violence. It distorts the truth and hinders our ability to have meaningful conversations across real differences. We are, as a nation, deeply divided. And this intense polarization and the culture of contempt that sustains us threatens to destroy us. And it is actively encouraged by those within the United States and outside who profit financially and politically from our divisions. And the Christian witness in the United States, as you may know, is also divided, for we are part of the country in which we dwell. We are well represented across the entire spectrum of political loyalties and societal polarities. And we are influenced by the same pressures as everyone else. And we commit many of the same sins. And so it is essential for Christian leaders like myself to speak and to act with humility in the wider society in which we live. For as Christians, we are in need of the same forgiveness, the same mercy, the same grace that we are called by God to embody for others. And so, I ask you, in a time when we are all in need of God's grace and in need of great courage, where do we turn as people of faith? Where do we go when we feel discouraged, disoriented, and overwhelmed? Where is our North Star? As you know, the astronomical North Star is a fixed point in the sky, and our forebears used it. They relied on it for navigation because it remained steady in the northern hemisphere, marking true north. Its constancy is what makes it a tool for guidance. Symbolically, our North Star is whatever guides us when we aren't sure what lies ahead. It symbolizes whatever gives us a sense of direction and purpose. And for those of us who are Christians, the life and teachings of Jesus are our North Star. In public and in private life, we are to follow him. And Jesus' North Star was the prophetic tradition of ancient Israel. Remember how in one version of how his ministry began, this is from the Gospel of Luke, first he felt the holy baptism descend upon him like a dove as he rose from the waters of his baptism by John. And then that same Spirit led him through a time of trial and temptation in the wilderness. And afterwards, remember, he returned to his hometown of Nazareth. And in the synagogue that raised him, he declared himself the fulfillment of words written centuries before by the prophet Isaiah. The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, because God has anointed me. He has sent me to bring good news to the poor, to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to captives, to release for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. And so Jesus understood his purpose in light of the prophet's highest communal values of equity and justice. To borrow a phrase from Roman Catholic social teachings, from the beginning, Jesus had a preferential option for the poor. And as the late Christian author Rachel Held Evans would often say, Jesus didn't only come to die for our sins, he came to live for us. He came to show us how to live and how to love. And so I believe that in this, our difficult time, our greatest contribution as Christians is to testify to what we know and speak to what we have seen. And even more importantly, we are to live as best we can according to the highest aspirations of humankind. And we know what they are. To recognize the God-given dignity of every human being. To love our neighbors as ourselves, and even to love our enemies. To share what we have and strive for a just society. To refrain from evil and refuse to hate. To be mindful of the power of our words and to speak without malice or contempt. To forgive as we have been forgiven. To live as best we can in hope, and to be willing to sacrifice, perhaps even our lives, for the sake of love. That is our calling as followers of Jesus, one we will never fulfill through our own power. It's impossible. But all things are possible through the love and mercy of Christ that lives within us. As the Apostle Paul wrote, and this, by the way, is the guiding text of my life, we do not proclaim ourselves. We proclaim Jesus as Lord and ourselves as your servants for Christ's sake. For it is the God who said, "Let light shine out of darkness," who has shone in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of God in the face of Jesus Christ. But we have this treasure in clay jars, so that it may be made clear that this extraordinary power, it belongs to God. It does not come from us. It belongs to God. Now, as I said earlier, the Christian witness in the United States is complicated, and especially now by an ascendant, politically powerful movement that we now speak of as Christian nationalism. And I believe it is the most serious threat to the witness of the Church today. The term Christian nationalism is relatively new, but this is not a new phenomenon. It has its roots way back in the mythology of our founding as a nation, that we were in fact founded as a Christian nation, which we were not, on Christian principles built by white men. It's an idea that perpetuates this notion that we have unique favor with God, as evidenced by our prosperity. Its ideology is unequivocally racist, specifically that of white supremacy, and it is dismissive of the capacity of women in leadership or public life. And this particular and current strain of Christian nationalism encourages to see it encourages its adherents to see themselves as under constant attack by the evils of secular society, and that the government must protect the primacy of Christianity as they understand it. But it is an expression of Christianity that bears little resemblance to Christ. It is firmly aligned with the goals of the current administration and is one of the many influences moving our country toward authoritarianism. But if the sermon I preached on January 21st has revealed anything, it is simply that professing a faith rooted in mercy, dignity, honesty, and humility is like water in the desert for parched souls. And so we may not be powerful, we may not be the biggest church. We have such an important message to proclaim and a witness to share, as do you here in your own lands. And the gratitude from Christians and non-Christians alike has evoked in me a sense of responsibility to promote, to encourage, to amplify a Christian worldview that seeks to promote the highest of human aspirations, what Jesus called the kingdom of God, what Martin Luther King Jr. called the beloved community. It has given me hope that we as Christians have a vital contribution to make as bearers of hope, possibility, and truth-telling. We do. Though I am Christian to the core, I reject the Christian nationalist vision that we are called on to dominate the society in which we live. When we engage in civic discourse and public life, it must be in service to all people, and in respect and with deep appreciation for the many ways the sacred mystery we call God has been revealed and experienced across time and culture. Think of it. The sheer variety of humankind and of all creation suggests that our God loves diversity. loves diversity. And there is nothing more powerful than when practitioners of different faiths or of no faith at all find common cause for the good of all. I think of Martin Luther King inspired by Gandhi, the friendship between Archbishop Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama, the interfaith alliances across this country and around the globe. They all suggest that we can indeed live together in solidarity and work together for the good of all God's children. We can and we must. I also believe that we are called to do our part to stop those who are determined to dismantle the institutions, destroy the guardrails of our democracy, and accelerate the very trends we need to reverse for the human species to survive. And the question I am most frequently asked in my time in Europe is, why has the American populace been so silent and seemingly accepting of the Trump administration's actions? Why aren't we all in the streets? Why aren't we speaking up? Why aren't we doing more? And I cannot myself answer that question definitively for you. I'm not sure I understand myself. It's true, there is as yet no cohesive societal movement in response to the Trump administration. And let me say that for me personally, it's still hard to accept what's happening. We're up against a lot. And we need now to build a very broad coalition, united by a vision large enough to hold all of us, because we can't go back to the way we were before, because the way we were before brought us to where we are now. We need a new vision. We need a new vision, and we need new waves of weaving our country back together. And wherever I go, people tell me that what they need most of all now is hope. Hope that we can indeed stop the damage being done and work toward a vision in which of society in which all human beings in their God-given diversity can thrive. That they long for, as I do, a different kind of conversation, marked by dignity and the coming together of people from very different viewpoints and life experiences to solve the problems we collectively face. And I am committing my life to creating such a space where we truly listen to one another rather than speak about each other in derision and contempt. Because just as fear is contagious, so is hope. And our faith is one of hope, never denying the power of evil and the reality of death, yet affirming the life-giving Spirit of God always at work to bring about good, to plant seeds of new possibilities that we don't even know are there now and are slowly taking root among us, and that life will emerge from the ashes of what is lost. Now, how many clergy are here in the room tonight? Lots of you. Yeah. So like all of you, I am preaching in a pulpit nearly every Sunday. And in preparation, just like you, I study the texts, I ponder our place in the world, and I consider the particular community to which I speak. I take stock of what's going on in my own heart. And at the very foundation of all this preparation is one basic question. What does God have to say to us now? And of course, our texts and traditions speak of many voices and perspectives, but the strongest, clearest, most consistent message from those sent by God or who speak on God's behalf is this: fear not. Fear not, for I am with you. It's not a promise of rescue, though there are stories of rescue, and I could sure use one from time to time. There is a hint of chastisement, but we needn't hear it that way. It's rather a reminder that we can turn to God in our fear and seek the reassurance and grace of God's presence. But what else does God have to say? The Christian faith, our faith, is founded on one simple premise: that every human being is God's beloved. The words that Jesus heard at his baptism, "You are my beloved, with you I am well pleased," that is for all of us. And lastly, our sacred texts are filled with stories of ordinary people called to do extraordinary things for which they are not equipped or prepared. And what I hear in those stories for myself, and I offer it to all of you, is one simple message: give what you have. Offer what you have. What we have to offer is ourselves. Think of the disciples with nothing but a few loaves and some fish in which to feed a multitude. Their offering wasn't enough, certainly not enough to meet the need, but Jesus accepted their offering, and through it, a miracle of abundance was offered with room to spare. These are some of the words I hold on to when I'm in need of grace, what I experience God saying to me and to all of us in those times when courage is called for. I'll say them again to you. Be not afraid. You are God's beloved. Offer what you have. But I also, this is my last thought for tonight, I also believe that in a time of needed grace, when courage is required of us, there is something that we need to say to God. What do you say to God in your times of prayer? I say all sorts of things, actually. I can't help it. I pray for help, for forgiveness, for guidance, for myself and those I love. I pray for our world. But then there comes a moment sometimes when I feel the need to say something even more. That I'm still here. I'm still here, willing to be present and engaged and not to quit when times are hard. There's a story in the Gospel of John that tells of a time near the end of Jesus' life when Jesus was at prayer. It's not the more familiar story of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, praying that if it were possible, the cup of suffering would pass him by. Rather, in this version, Jesus is in Bethany, a small village outside of Jerusalem, where he's preparing for that final entry into Jerusalem. And this is his prayer. Now my soul is troubled. And what shall I say? Father, spare me from this hour? No. No, it is for this reason that I have come to this hour. Father, glorify your name. And when we pray with that kind of resolve, with that courage, we are saying to God, we are here. It is for this hour that we have come. We may not have chosen it, but it is ours. And no matter what happens, we're still here. And we will do our best to embody your spirit in whatever way we can. And with this resolve, we're not asking God to change what cannot be changed, only to give us the strength to persevere in hope. We are reassuring God and one another that we're not going anywhere, that we are here. This is our time to be God's people on this earth, and with God's grace, we will rise to this moment. I believe in our innate human capacity to take enormous evolutionary leaps for the good. Our forebears have done it in the past. They've done the impossible in the past, and we can do it now. And it is that potential to which we are called. Oh, I do have one final thing. In all of this, one final thing. On what we say to God and to ourselves at this moment, and this is from our promises at baptism, we will respect the dignity of every human being. In our culture of contempt, we will respond with dignity. In a world of meanness, we will act with kindness and love. At a time when it is so easy to be cynical and despairing, we will live in hope. I'm persuaded that this is a time for us to be present in as many places as we can and offer what we have to give, to invest in the things we believe in, and to find common cause. And to do this, we need to ground ourselves every day in our own belovedness, drawing from the wells of God's love for us, and to pray daily for wisdom and strength and grace, because there's so much at stake now. And the success of our efforts is not guaranteed. But for Christians, hopelessness is not an option. It's not. And it's not because of how great we are. It's not because of us, but because of Christ dwelling within us. We have our North Star, and in that faith, we go on. We are the ones now. For this hour, we are here, and as Christians, our greatest contribution to the world is, by God's grace, to be who we are. God bless you all, and thank you.
Well, Mariann, you take that home. Take that picture home.
I'll take it home. Thank you.
Take this impression of all these people and another big hall with other people. Take that home and take that as an encouragement. I think we all have this feeling that something big is happening now, that there are so many people of goodwill, so many people who want to practice what you just told us: dignity, love, respect, a new culture of dealing with each other. And these are many people.
I know.
These are many
Lots
people.
of you.
We can make a difference if everyone practices that. And all these people do it, actually.
But it's also to remember that we don't do it alone, and we don't do it perfectly, right? We make mistakes, we start over. You know, it is a
And we
journey.
do it at both sides of the ocean.
Yes.
This is what my vision is. I say that already now, that this event today can be the seed for something really big on both sides of the ocean.
Amen.
We will network, and we will not leave what's happening to the people at the top, whoever is elected there. We will do it ourselves. We will be the civil society force, the churches that network with each other on the basis of what you have told us.
Thank you.
So. Before I ask her a question, I was asked to tell you again that the code that should be visible somewhere, but you got it already, that the code is for questions. So they can deal with questions. It's not for complaints and what doesn't work and all these things. They can't deal with that one. They really want your questions. So when you use your app, do it with questions. That's what I was asked to say. But I want to ask you, I think that's important at the beginning of this, about your experience on that very day. Because I know, and we have felt it already now, so many people have been with you in their hearts, and you can feel the emotion here. You can feel a lot of emotion here. And I can also say my emotion. Many people told me the same thing when they saw this video, when they heard you speak these words, when they saw the new president, and you spoke softly, and basically you only read the Bible. I mean, you only said what the Bible said, basically. And it had such a power. And we all felt it. And I had tears in my eyes. And I think many told me they had too. So now we have you here, and we need to use that possibility. How was it, actually? When you prepared, when you were on the pulpit, and afterwards?
It was many things. But I would say if you can remember what it feels like when you know you have to do something that is like diving off the deep end of a diving board, and you don't know exactly how you're going to land. That's what it felt like. Once I was in the pulpit, because I'm familiar with that experience, my instincts just sort of took over. But the feeling was of a great responsibility, a desire to bring the humanity of people who had been treated so and spoken of so cruelly into the room, to remind us that we can't have unity as a country without our people. And so I felt all of those things. But in the end, it really didn't matter how I felt. And I think you know what that's like. When you just, you know how you feel, but that isn't the most important thing. The most important thing is just
that it's right.
To keep going.
Yeah.
And so, and all of you have been there. You know what that's like. And it was like that for me.
And we heard and read about the reactions about this one representative of parliament who said you should be on a deportation list. And so you got a lot of probably criticism and threat, whatever. And I know that you also got a lot of support. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I mean, I expected the criticism because this is not first of all, we live in a culture and this particular, where the response to anything that is not favorable is to be as dismissive and derogatory as possible. Like that's the culture in which we live now, and I expected that. I was not expecting the wave after wave after wave of positive response. Our office was filled with flowers for 2 weeks. We had, I'm not kidding, we had from all over the world. And letters and emails boxes and boxes and boxes of letters. People sent me chocolates, hand-knit socks. It was completely overwhelming. And perhaps most touching were the letters of personal story. You know, the number of letters that said, you know, I gave up on the Christian faith years ago. Although I am not a Christian, I wanted to thank you. Thank you for speaking up on behalf of my child, father. You know, we are immigrants in this country and we are proud to be here. Things just story after story after story. And again, the volume, as I said earlier, it said to me there is a place in our collective conversation for us. For those of us who aspire to a quieter Christianity, we're not very loud anymore, but we have an important message and a way of being in the world. And it's important that we act in ways that people recognize as Christians, and then we've been given the opportunity to help shape the society in which we live, not by force, but by the persuasive power of love.
And how was the reaction of the people of your own church? We read all the polls and stuff, and they said, and I do admit that I was a little bit surprised. We always talk about the evangelicals voting for Trump and 80%, but then we got the statistics of the mainline churches, of our churches, and they were also pretty much the same as the general polls. So, of course, there were a lot of people who voted for this president in your own church. How did they react? Did you feel anything, how they reacted? They could say, we're proud of our bishop. Or they could say, why did she do this?
Yeah, that's what they said. Exactly, that's what they said, which is fine. I've been bishop for 14 years now, so and I don't speak, actually I speak quite a lot on issues, but most of the time nobody pays any attention.
Yeah.
And so what was new was all the attention. But, you know, as you said, it's hard to it's hard to argue with the biblical principles. Oh. We may argue about, people said it wasn't appropriate for me to address him in that way, and I understand that. I can understand people have differing points of view. But as I said earlier, one of the reasons why this is such a challenging time is that the mood of the country, and including in many of our churches, has changed. It is far less hospitable to migrants than it was. It's very concerned about the economic future of our country. People were persuaded by the promises of the campaigns that surrounded this president and his party, and they were given all of the levers of power. So it isn't going to work for me to yell, right? That's not a winnable strategy right now. We have to talk to one another. And we have to preserve the abuses of the power that have been entrusted to this administration, because it's quite clear that they have no interest in staying within the bounds of their authority. They will push and push and push, and so we have to, as best we can, through legal means, push back. But that's part of the strategy. And I pray that in time the public mood will shift again to a more expansive understanding of who we are and defending our liberties and democracy, but it's going to be a conversation between us as well as speaking to our public officials, if that makes sense.
Well, you said something very important, I think. You said, and that's what you practiced. I think that's why your sermon had such a power. You were basically preaching the gospel. You were, as I said, reading the Bible. So we have a debate in Germany as well. There were some politicians saying the church should not
Really?
church should not speak up to political things. They are not complaining so much if you say what they like you to say. They normally complain when you say something critical.
Sure.
But they always put it in political terms, in the political colors, you know, red, green, black, whatever else. And what they don't understand sometimes, some of these voices, what they don't understand is that if we speak to the public, to political things, we do it from our faith. So if you say, protect the weak, protect the migrants, it's not enough to say, but this party or that party always says that, so you are party politicians. No, then we need to hear why the Bible, they understand the Bible in a different way. And then I would ask, how do you understand if Jesus says, I have been a stranger and you have received me, and all these things? Then the discussion becomes interesting. But what we experience is that this discussion is always, you are too political, even though you're simply saying what you think the gospel and the Bible tells us to say, and it's our duty to say that in public and to be advocates for that orientation. And if I may say one more thing, my analysis would be that in the United States, it's very clear that it's political agenda and the gospel is completely instrumentalized for that political agenda. Is that what you would think too? You can say no.
For certain people, of course. I don't know that that's operative everywhere, but it's certainly true among those who are closest to the levers of power. I also think it's important for us not to be naive about the impact of our positions, right? And so if there are other people who hold a different position, we need to understand why, right? And so we're not so clear about being right that we lose the ability to be heard. And being heard means that people trust you enough to listen to their perspectives, which we don't have to agree. But we have to create a space where people feel safe enough that we can actually have the conversation. And so I'm pretty clear about, I'm not clear on everything, and I've learned it's dangerous to have an opinion about everything, especially if you don't know very much about a subject. And have you noticed that sometimes we have the strongest opinions about things we know the least about? So, and that's true for all of us. It can be true for me. And so to be very careful about the issues upon which I speak, and to do so with the authority of some experience, and also the ability to be able to articulate well the position of those who disagree with me. So that I'm not just dismissing them and proclaiming, well, of course, I'm right, because that, at least on the level of citizen to citizen, now there are certain people in political office that they're not interested in that kind of conversation. But for those who are, we have to find those contexts and those conversations, because otherwise we're just going to be like a ping pong ball going back from one extreme to the other. And that's what we've been doing in the US for a very long time, and it's exhausting us. And now with all the influence of money and social media and all the ways that all of this gets amplified, you get the sense that there are other people who are profiting from our being angry at each other all the time. You know, that there are interests at work that really like it when we're just fighting all the time. And I think we have to try a different way, which is not to say we don't care for migrants, but to do it in such a way that other perspectives can be heard as well.
Can you explain that a little more?
Yeah.
Because my experience is also with my family and friends in the United States, who have different opinions of things. And I experience people who are full of love, who are people who care for others, who care for refugees, who treat them with respect, and who vote for Trump.
Right.
And that's what I don't understand. It's really hard for me to understand because I love these people and I really respect them. I feel their love. I really think they're full of love. But it's in the individual realm, and when it comes to the political realm, it seems to be not consistent with what they...
Sure.
Is there any insight you can give me, can give us about that?
I agree. I mean, I can't speak for your family, but the it's not an uncommon polarity, and we all have to be careful that we have our own inconsistencies and contradictions. Right? We're all human, but there is a fairly strong disconnect between. In fact, it's part of the philosophy. The Vice President has, in fact, interpreted a tenet of Roman Catholicism, which the Pope corrected him on when they had this conversation, but that the primary focus is our families and those in our inner circle. That is our first, and I don't disagree with that, right? My primary calling is my family. And then from there, we go out in concentric circles into the wider world. And Vance was saying that that's the theological argument for caring for our own first, the America first thing. Which I'm not saying there isn't some truth to that. You want your government officials to care for you, right? And there's a lot of Americans who think that their government for too many years didn't care about them. And you know what? They were right. They were right. And so we have to find a way to care for our people in a way that they feel a part of the society too. But this idea that we don't care for those on the outer, that's just a complete distortion of Christianity. Christianity would say the exact opposite. And so if we're true, but you can understand why people would say that. So it's logical in its own way, even if we don't agree. The way that concentric circle gets broadened, I think, is through experience and relationships. So you are against migrants until you become friends with someone and you realize that they are a migrant, right? You are against illegal crossing of the border until you meet the most wonderful person who tells you of how they were threatened by gun violence in their country and they fled with their children at 2 o'clock in the morning and they walked across Mexico for the hope of a better future. And your heart is softened and you realize that this is a human being, right? It's easy to disagree on issues. It's harder when you're dealing human to human, and that's part of what I feel the church. We have, there are a lot of things we can't do, but we can do that if we try to listen to one another.
And also find spaces where people of different views come together. Well, one of the challenges for people who speak for the church, whatever office they have, but public people, they, I think, need to give clear orientation in terms of the fundamental biblical values, like you did. And at the same time, and that is the tension, at the same time, as you also said, when you talk to people, no matter what they say, even if they say the most absurd things, then you still take them as a human being. And that is the first thing. That's what the doctrine of justification says. You never judge a person only according to his or her deeds or words, but always, he's always or she's always first a human being. So you have this respect for every human being, which you so beautifully said. But then when your public speech is reported in the newspaper or in TV even, normally that one political sentence is being reported, but they don't feel you. They don't feel your vibration, your love for that person that is standing in front of you. That is really difficult. When we speak up publicly, they think we are politicians because we advocate for the poor, for example, and they don't feel that the gospel in a way, the love and the gospel that says you are God's beautiful child, no matter who you are.
Right.
How do you deal with that tension? Do you have any experience to share?
Well, it's a part of the. I was just thinking as you were talking that just because it's a biblical principle doesn't necessarily mean that that's not a persuasive argument in a secular society, right?
Yeah.
And so we have to be able to we have to be able to make a case for the things that are for the good of all, right? And to live with some humility in the plurality of our society. And so there may be some aspects of our biblical understanding that may be at odds with the wider society, and we accept that because that's just part of our identity. It's not something that we foist upon other people. It's how we understand how we are to live. But when we engage in the public realm, our focus needs to be on what is for the good of all, or for the least and the most vulnerable. And in a society where the disparities of wealth and poverty are so extreme, and they're very extreme in the US right now, we have a particular responsibility, both in terms of asset reallocation and also our witness. So, I mean, I just would say it is difficult. I don't...
Well, we need bilinguality, 2 languages. We need to know where we come from, but we need to also explain why this makes a lot of sense, for example, to say the wealth of a nation depends on the situation of the poorest member.
Sure.
And that is the option for the poor that you talked about.
Right.
But it makes a lot of sense, and many philosophers have written books about that and said exactly the same thing, that the wealth of a nation is judged from the weakest member.
Right.
So I think it's possible to be true to our own sources and at the same time be plausible to the wider discourse in a pluralistic society. And that's what we should train to engage in that discourse. I want to ask you about the media.
I wonder if there are other. When are we going to ask questions from the?
Well, we have, but we could go to the questions sooner.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to hear from all of you.
Yeah.
What you want to ask me about the media? I'll be quick.
Yeah, that one quick. With internet and everything, with the videos that are shared about refugees and everything, what role do the media play now in the United States? Is there even a chance to get a democratic discourse in public life to make it possible with those new developments in the media, with all those videos and algorithms?
I can answer that one quickly. I have no idea.
Okay.
We'll ask the journalists.
So let's go to the advocates of the people all here and all the questions. Sandra, are you ready to tell us some of the questions that you got? Sandra and Rüdiger? Yes.
I think maybe I'll stand up so that so I can see you.
Let us first say that we got lots and lots and lots of comments and questions.
Okay.
And almost all of them, Bishop Mariann, started with saying thanks for the courage which you have given us.
Okay. Thank you. So what are the questions?
And from the question, you have answered somehow most of them already.
Okay.
But there is this situation that many in this room seem to put themselves into the shoes when you were...
You need to talk in the microphone.
When you were standing...
Sorry.
I'm trying hard.
I'll stand right here, yes? I'm sorry, I'm teasing you.
There seem to be many in this room who really put themselves into your shoes when you were preaching and standing in front of the president. And we admire your courage, your firmness at the same time. But how was it? Was there a moment that you had shivering knees, or was it that you were really clear and firm? Did you feel people standing behind you? Did you feel lonely? And that gets down to a broader question in the end of the day. Have you ever been hopeless in your life? And what did you do to overcome that?
Ooh. Okay.
You have a mic.
I have a microphone. All right. So as the day drew nearer, I had been working on the manuscript for a long time, and I was consulting with people that I respect, getting their feedback and writing and rewriting, and but it was the day of the inauguration itself, the day before, when I realized that I needed to say something about the need for empathy or compassion. I settled on the word mercy. And I needed to bring into the room people who had been treated so poorly. I wasn't 100% sure that was the right thing to do. And one person counseled me against it because she thought it would put me in danger. And another said, please do, but only mention immigrants, only one group. Don't mention LGBTQ people. And but then I got another call from somebody who said, please don't forget the LGBTQ persons in our country. They're so afraid. So I realized people were looking to me to say something. And so I was feeling all of that, you know? So yes, I was very nervous. And when we were on the podium, it was like this, and there was speaker after speaker and prayer after prayer and music, and I was trying not to throw up. I thought that would be bad. And then someone reminded me, and I'll share this with you because I think it gets to the second question. Someone reminded me just a couple of days before about a prayer that is taught in 12-step spirituality, Alcoholics Anonymous, all of the recovery and sobriety spiritualities. And the prayer is this, that when you're feeling something that you are struggling with and that you would rather not feel, the prayer is to ask God to remove that feeling and to replace it with something that would give God, that would be pleasing to God. So there I was sitting on the podium, I was really scared, and I prayed that prayer. I just said, I would ask you to take away how I feel and replace it with something that would be pleasing to you. Now, there was no dramatic change in me, don't hear that, but when I climbed up into the actual pulpit itself and I began, it was more automatic. Because I do that so often. Like if you're a swimmer or a sports person or you're a musician, there's a muscle memory that takes over. And that's what happened for me. And then there was no doubt in my mind that I was going to finish to the end. And so that's how, if you want to know, that's how it felt, kind of blow by blow. And afterwards, it was pretty clear that the room was quiet. It was not, it wasn't like this. Not a lot of applause. And no. And And I remember saying to the head of the cathedral, my counterpart there, because normally we go to the back and we greet people. And I said to him, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go back to where we began. I'm just not going out there. And he told me afterwards that that was a very wise decision. The president, whenever the president comes into our worship spaces, he and anyone of any security significance, they're whisked away. They don't greet people. They're just sort of taken away. But, you know, there were a lot of his supporters there, and they were not pleased, which is all right. But my counterparts and the staff and the musicians, they all just threw their arms around me, you know, and they thanked me. And I thought, and I did it for them. You know, I did it for them. So that I could live with and of course I had no idea what was going to happen next. I mean, how could you know something like this? So, and believe me, it wasn't just me, it was every church in our diocese, the cathedral, members of our staff, their phones were ringing. I mean, it was just this constant onslaught of, first very negative, the negatives came first, and then the overwhelming positive. And if you were among those who wrote us, thank you. I apologize I didn't write back to you personally. I was really going to try, and then I realized, no, this is impossible, but I do thank you. And we felt it, and it changed us. And it gave us a sense that we have, all of us, it wasn't about me, it's not about me, you know this. It's about all of us and what we've been given and what we testify to what we know. We speak of what we know, and we testify to what we've seen. And that's, so does that answer? Now the question about losing hope, of course I've lost hope, right? I'm human, just like everyone else. And I go through all the things that everyone else goes through. Sometimes I surround myself with people who love me. Sometimes I go to therapy. Sometimes I go for a long walk. Sometimes I struggle for weeks and weeks and weeks, just like everyone else, right? And there are lots of ways that we are traumatized by the things that happen to us, and there are many ways that we heal. All of them much slower than we would like. But that is part of the human story, and it's what builds compassion in us, isn't it? When you've been through the dark night, and you make it through, you're so grateful. But then you also, when you see someone else go through it, you know. And so you have compassion, and that's how we grow. So I never like it when that happens, and I hate it when it happens for someone I love, but it's part of our story. And so we embrace it as best we can and learn and grow, right? So, does that help? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Bishop. The next topic is somewhat linked to what you already mentioned. This morning in your Bible study, and just now again, you reminded us of God's or the angel's advice, fear not. Mm-hmm. You kept reminding us. And so many online and here right now asked, how? How do we do it? And you now shared on hopelessness, and somewhat linked to it is the whole topic of courage. How do we keep courage? How do we love each other in a courageous way? How do we gain courage when it's lost in a way? You wrote a book that's called How to Be Brave. So now to the expert, what advice do you have for us?
Well, when we say fear not, it's not to say that there's nothing to be afraid of. That would be foolish. And it would be mean, you know? You're about to have a life-altering surgery. You'd be made of stone not to be afraid, right? You would be If something really exciting is about to happen, but it has great risk, of course you feel afraid. So I think the words, as I was trying to say earlier, the words "don't be afraid" isn't to like say, don't be afraid, but more, I'm here. You know, I'm here. We may not be protected from everything that happens to us. In fact, we know we are not. So it's not that, like, fear not, I'm going to take everything and everything's going to be all right. But fear not that I'm with you, and you will get through this somehow. And the worst thing that happens is not the last thing. I mean, even if our very lives are taken from us, which they will be at some time, and for some of us sooner than others, and that's the mystery of human suffering that we cannot deny. But there is also a grace that is available to us, and I think that's the fear not part. And then also the fear not being, I will not let my fears stop me, right? I don't know if any of you are like me in this way, but I have had for most of my life a terrible fear of flying in airplanes. Really. I mean, just thinking about being in an airplane just says this is the most ridiculous thing for a human being to do. And every time a plane goes down, I think, yeah, I have every reason to be afraid but I love to see my family, and they don't all live next door. And I wanted to come and see you, and I wanted, you know, so it's just it's a very small example on the scale of things, but to say, okay, yes, I feel afraid, but am I going to let the fear stop me from doing something that I feel is right? Now, sometimes your fear says, don't move in front of that truck. That's a good fear. Listen to that one. Don't put yourself in needless danger, right? That's your mother speaking. But you hear what I'm saying, right? That there are times when if we let our fears stop us, we wouldn't do anything at all. I mean, a child learning how to walk or to ride a bicycle or to swim, those are terrifying at first. And if we stopped there, you know, so we can do this. And we can help one another. Thank you. Maybe one more? Okay.
Bishop Mariann, you helped us so much about being hopeful and being courageous. But still there is some sort of skepticism, fearfulness in the room. How might the American society continue to develop? I want to just take up one issue, you will take up another one. This sort of national tendency, this sort of America first, we know this from other countries as well. This kind of I and me before us. How do we deal with that? And Bishop Heinrich, we will not let you sit in your chair too comfortably. We will ask you whether we as Germans have a lesson to learn what Bishop Mariann is going to say.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a clever audience, yes. Individualism runs very deep in the American psyche. It's very, very deep. And so it will always be part of us, and it has good aspects to it, very good, very positive, and it has a shadow side. And I can't deny that. And I can't predict how it's going to go for the next era of our life as a country. I honestly can't tell you. But I know how I will respond and how we can. We also have strong communal tendencies. They're not as ascendant now. They've been harmed by all the other things that have isolated us from one another, but they're there. And And so, you know, as Lincoln said, we tend to the better angels of our nature and try to correct the shadow side. But I understand the fear. I fear it myself. And I can't promise you that the American experiment will survive. I honestly don't know. We thought we were exceptional, you know. We thought this would never happen in America. That was for other countries, you know. We're Americans. This would never happen. Well, here we are. It turns out we're no different from any other country that struggles with these authoritarian waves. And it seems like we don't learn, you know, from the examples of other nations. We have to go through it ourselves, and it's very sad, particularly when you have imperial and empire-like influence around the world. So a lot of us feel very guilty about that when we travel around the world, and we want to apologize. Excuse me. But it is part of us. And I have to own it. You know, I can't just say, oh, it's those other Americans, you know, those ones you don't like. That's not fair. It's all of us. And we have to take responsibility for it. And I don't know how it is for Germany, but I suspect you have.
Well, I think I would like to know more about what you said, some things about what is happening in the United States. How can we connect somehow? I mean, there are people who it's reported in our newspapers that universities are speaking up and are not accepting what's happening. The law system says we are not accepting certain deportations and things like that. And we don't know whether that will help. But I wonder what this resource here, so many people who feel connected to the United States. It used to be the transatlantic bridge, and this is the transatlantic bridge for me. It's not anymore the big politics, it's the people. And I wonder how we can connect, how we can make something out of this.
Well, let's see.
Yeah.
You know? You know, some of the polarities and tensions that we experience in the U.S. are global, and obviously there are so many things that unite us. So there's no reason why this can't be one of them. And I think it's happening. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't.
Yeah.
So we'll just carry on. I've learned a lot from you already, and I look forward to. I also feel that, you know, it must be very difficult when. And I've certainly watched this in other eras, when a country elects someone that has pulls the country out of all the agreements that you thought you had made in the past. That is very disorienting. And our political system right now is just going back and forth and back and forth. It gives you a headache just thinking about it. And it's not good for so much. So maybe your job is to be the steady ones for a time, because we aren't. And maybe Europe and in how you manage your polarities can help teach us, because right now we're a bit out of control. And I say that in kindness and in love. We are sort of out of control right now, and it's spinning in a way that isn't easy to stop. And so on some level, I feel like we're going to just have to ride this thing through and see what's on the other side, stopping what we can. So we'll be just watching you, and I'll call you up and say, Heinrich, help.
Well, the World Council of Churches, of course, is very much, I mean, it's 352 churches in 120 countries, and we're all looking at you and trying to support you and see what we can do, what is counterproductive, and how can we help. So let's just be in connection, and we will be in connection, everyone here. Like there are many people who have friends who have connections to the United States. I would say, don't stop going to the United States. Phone, just talk to people and try to to understand what's happening on the other side, both ways,
Sure.
and keep the connection. And let's keep up these values that you so beautifully told us with your soft voice, that everyone feels it in their hearts.
Thank you.
Let's keep them up. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think we should stop now. This is enough for all of you. Thank you. Thank you. I think, okay. I just think for them it's been an hour and a half. What do you think? I know, but it's fine with me. I'm just worried about all of you. Are you okay? I mean, if you want to leave now, it's okay. I've been here for a long time, but I'm here all night. I can stay. That's fine.
So,
All right.
I was just about to mention that we got the information that because so many questions are coming in and so many people are interested in your ministry, we got 10 more minutes. So
Right.
if
10 more
it's
minutes.
okay for you just to share.
Right, for you. I'm fine.
You just shared on this feeling of a discontinued connection between Europe and the United States, so it feels kind of separated right now. And a lot of people online and right now here also shared their image of a divided society and a divided church. So sometimes people feel that we are separated into us and them, and that Christians turn brothers and sisters into outsiders or othering the other opinions. So with this division in politics and also in terms of theology, what are your practical advices to stay in this situation of a feeling of division and separation, good brothers and sisters, and how do we stay together?
One of the teachers in my life said to me that the goal in starting with your families, say, is to have the best possible relationship you can with every person in your family. Recognizing that what is possible is very different based on what's coming back from the other person, the level of maturity, the level of commitment, all the things that determine how relationships can go. So that's one way that I think of it. What is the best possible relationship I can have with as many people who are in different places than I? And then the second one is to personally resolve not to speak with contempt. Just don't do it. It is actually a lot harder than it sounds, because it is so easy to slip from I disagree with your position or your opinion to you are an absolute idiot for holding that position, right? Or how could you possibly, all of that language. And all of our social media has coarsened us. We are very accustomed now to speaking about one another in negative terms. And so I just try imperfectly, I don't do this very well all the time, but just to catch myself. Do I tell jokes at other people's expense? Do I make fun of them because it's easy, because I'm with someone who sees the world as I do? Of course I do that. Is that helpful? No, right? So try not to do that. To try, from our side, I can't control what other people do, nor can you. But we can offer the best of what we have and to believe in the possibility that something might shift in the future. This is what I have now. It may be different tomorrow. Yeah. And never underestimate the power of God, the Spirit working in and among us. You know, just never underestimate the things that can happen, right? Because there are moments when a door or a window opens and you have a connection with someone that you thought you would never speak to again, or that hated you for who you were, and suddenly there's a new bond. And those are the things to watch for the Spirit at work. If it were up to us alone, I wouldn't be as hopeful, right? But it's not. We have the power of God to draw from and to follow as best as we can, right? So we do the best we can.
Many also shared how your soft but very empowering voice really gave a lot of strength and hope to people here. And the question is, now you, as far as I understood it, you are advising us to be bridge builders in a way. But are there situations where you say, I'm just fed up, and sometimes just to stay healthy.
Oh, sure.
And to stay with myself and be authentic as a Christian with my values, that I say I have to put a healthy boundary. How do you decide when and how to set this healthy boundary?
Well, it's very important. That's the other side, right? Not to put yourself in abusive situations. Let's start there, right? If you're in a physically abusive or an emotionally abusive situation, you step out of that because that is not healthy for you. And it's not particularly good for the other person either. So just, there are boundaries of, like I know, for example, that there are certain times of the day or week or where my reserves are very low and I don't have much to give. And if I'm asked to give when I don't have much to give, it will not go well. Sometimes I have no choice, but you know what I'm saying? Like I can tell this is not a time for me to deal with something that causes a great deal of anxiety because I don't have a lot inside me right now. And so that's just good self-awareness and self-care. But I caution us against being so protective that our boundaries close us off from the possibilities of engagement. Like that's the other. So like but my boundaries aren't yours and vice versa. We have to know who we are, where we end and another person begins. We have to tend to ourselves and our own maturity, and we grow in our capacity to be in relationship with one another. So whoever asked all of those questions, I would say trust your instincts, but also pay attention to the ways that God might be calling you. Because we're always a bit uncomfortable when we take the risk, right? But we don't want to put ourselves in harm's way. Right?
Bishop Mariann, it was a long day for you. It was a long day for you.
And all of you.
And for many of us in this room.
Yes.
We are so grateful for your questions. We couldn't do justice to every precise question, but we tried to cluster them and to do some concrete questions out of what we have received together. So thank you. You helped to get the best out of Bishop Mariann.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh. Thank all of you.
Thank you so much. Great.
Will you do the blessing? Will you do the blessing?
So,
We will have a blessing outside.
Oh, okay.
Also, ihr Lieben, die Sache ist folgendermaßen. My job now is to say thank you, and I wondered how to do it. And here is what I would like to suggest.
Das ist gut.
Because when we talked before, Mariann said that she loves us singing. And because we have been talking about courage, why not be courageous and try to sing without any practicing now all together for her? The song which was written in the times of the nations of the American Revolution by Matthias Claudius, Der Mond ist aufgegangen, which might be the very best of German Protestantism if we think back. And so now let's try and dare and sing it all together, because afterwards we will sing the song we all know and you can sing with us, We Shall Overcome, but I think we should start back in the German Enlightenment. So here we go. Der Mond ist aufgegangen. Ihr kennt alle den Text. Und jetzt müssen wir nur noch intonieren und Heinrich, ich schlage vor, du gibst den Ton vor.
Wir singen We Shall Overcome, singen wir jetzt.
Erst der Mond ist aufgegangen.
Okay, we
weil
sing
sich
both.
das gewünscht hat.
Ja, okay. Also dann, und ich singe einfach mal die Verse, ohne die genau zu zählen. Ihr singt einfach die Verse dann mit, die ich anstimme sozusagen. Der Mond ist aufgegangen, die goldenen Sternlein prangen, am Himmel hell und klar. Der Wald steht schwarz und schweigend und aus den Wiesen steiget der weiße Nebel wunderbar. Wie ist die Welt so stille? Wie ist die Welt so stille? Und in der Dämmerung Höhle so traulich und so hold, als eine stille Kammer, da ihr des Tages Jammer verlassen und vergessen sollt. Seht ihr den Mond dort stehen? Seht ihr den Mond dort stehen? Er ist nur halb zu sehen und ist doch rund und schön. Wohl Wind, wohl manche Sachen, die wir getrost belachen, weil unsere Augen sie nicht sehen. So legt euch Schwestern, Brüder, so legt euch Schwestern, Brüder, in Gottes Namen nieder. Kalt ist der Abendhauch, verschon uns Gott mit Strafen und lass uns ruhig schlafen und unseren kranken Nachbarn auch.
So this was for you.
It's beautiful. It was beautiful, thank you.
And,
We shall overcome.
and for all of us together, we shall overcome.
Shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We shall walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we'll overcome someday. Isn't that great? Sagt ihr das noch mit dem Signieren? Now you will sign some books probably. Yeah.
So, aber jetzt müsst ihr aufhören zu klatschen, denn sonst bleibt keine Zeit mehr übrig, um die Bücher zu unterzeichnen. Dort steht eine Schlange. Mariann Budde wird jetzt noch wenige Bücher unterzeichnen. Wir haben aber insgesamt nicht mehr so viel Zeit. Wir müssen also einfach auf eure Nachsicht zählen. Aber sie wird jetzt dort vorne am Tisch unterschreiben und wir bitten euch, die Schlange von hinten aufzuzäumen.
Sehr schön, vielen Dank.
Das wird nicht klappen. Was machen wir denn? Ihr habt bestimmt jetzt eine Idee, um sie zu schützen.
Ja, ja, wir haben da.
end.